Hello, welcome back to the New Healthcare Caregiver Empowerment Programme. This webinar is on emotional regulation. My name is Aisling and I'm a behaviour specialist here in New Healthcare. You're very welcome to today's webinar. This webinar is designed to provide helpful information on different strategies to support emotional regulation in individuals with different diagnoses. It is suitable for caregivers, any family members who are involved in providing care to an individual with a diagnosis of an intellectual disability, ADHD, ASD, or GDD, or for anyone who would just like to know more about emotional regulation. Today, we will talk about how to identify situations and events that might cause emotional dysregulation and the early indicators of an individual becoming dysregulated and how best to support them before they reach crisis. We'll also talk about the different behaviours that might suggest an individual has become dysregulated and how to support them and manage this in a safe way. And finally, we'll discuss the behaviours an individual might engage in following a period of dysregulation and again, how to support them through this. So first, we will look at emotional regulation and dysregulation. What is this? How emotional regulation difficulties contribute to behaviours of concern. We will then look at the early stages of dysregulation and some ways to support. We'll then look further at emotional dysregulation before moving on to the aftermath, the tension reduction. We'll then look at some breathing instructions, which can be helpful strategies after periods of dysregulation, before going on to summarising the above topics. So the first topic is emotional regulation and dysregulation, and we'll look at what this is and some of the reasons that it can be difficult for those with additional needs. So what is emotional regulation and dysregulation? Emotional regulation is the ability to effectively manage and respond to an emotional experience, even difficult or distressing emotions. On the other hand, emotional dysregulation is when situations involve strong emotions trigger behaviours that are not adaptive or appropriate to typical societal expectations. So we are born not knowing how to regulate our emotions. We start learning from a very early stage, for example, when parents soothe crying babies. And these are skills that we continue to develop and redefine right through our lifespan. Communication barriers can play a large part in emotional dysregulation. As adults, we tend to use verbal communication to get the majority of our needs met. If you've already watched my colleague Lorna's webinar on the function of an individual's behaviour, you might recognise some of the categories of need here in the examples below. These categories of need are also identified as the function of an individual's behaviour. So, as adults, we can initiate social interactions when we want company or get the attention of a shop assistant when we need help. We excuse ourselves or ask for a break when we don't want to do something. This is escape. Or tell people in advance if we're not comfortable to be in a particular place. This is avoidance. We can ask for name or point to items that are out of our reach or that someone else can get for us. And we can order food in a restaurant or order clothes online. This is known as access to tangibles. And we can make doctor's appointments when we're unwell, book a massage if we have pain, play music when we feel like listening to it, sensory, and express a range of different emotions to lessen the often uncomfortable somatic experience associated with them. And this is automatic. In addition to this, as adults, we have mastered the concept of time and have developed the ability to wait. Sometimes we may feel lonely or bored just now, but we know that we'll be able to meet our friends at the weekend and we'll be able to wait for this attention. We may be struggling to maintain focus or motivation at work, but we know that we will finish at 5 and we can wait for this opportunity to escape. We may feel hungry, but we know that dinner will be ready in 40 minutes. So we wait for this tangible. And when we feel frustrated or angry, we know that it will pass, and sooner or later we will feel better again. We also have lots of things we can do that will help with these feelings. So we call this our emotional regulation skills. And again, these are not skills we were born with. However, they are things we have had to learn. Some individuals know what they want, but have not yet mastered the communication skills to calmly tell this to someone else. There can be a lot of frustration when their needs aren't met. There can also be difficult emotional responses when requests are understood but can't be met immediately. Responses like, in a little while, not yet, or maybe tomorrow, can feel very aversive to an individual who does not have a concept of time or the skills to wait. A little while may seem like an eternity, and they have no guarantee that tomorrow will even come. When a person has a disability or neurodevelopmental disorder, difficulties with expressing wishes and desires may continue indefinitely. This is likely to be compounded with difficulties with receptive communication also, and the ability to understand what is being said to us. A person may have trouble understanding what is being said to them, paying attention when the person speaking has finished, remembering what was said to them, or acting on the information they were given. These difficulties have the potential to create confusion and anxiety for the person who doesn't understand what is going on and doesn't have a functional way to express their needs. In addition to communication deficits and difficulties with waiting, there are other developmental tasks that individuals with additional needs may not have achieved. So, object permanence, understanding that things continue to exist even when we can't see them. The deficit in this can cause distress and when preferred people or things are not present. Theory of mind, understanding that other people have their own perspectives, thoughts, and feelings that are different from our own. Turn taking skills, the ability to have back and forth interactions with other people that are mutually satisfying. And sharing, the deficits in these can make it difficult for individuals to socialize and to meet social expectations that they are not aware of. And other people's behavior can seem arbitrary and unfair. Now we will talk about how a person's difficulties with emotional regulation can contribute to behaviours that we as parents or caregivers can find very challenging. So, understanding the role of emotional regulation in relation to behaviours of concern. When we put all these deficits and their knock on effects and implications together, we can start to see from the perspective of an individual with a disability how confusing, contradictory, or overwhelming the world may seem. This can cause very strong and unpleasant emotions such as anxiety, frustration, anger, fear, overwhelm in an individual who has neither the communication skills to express and seek support with these feelings, nor the emotional regulation skills to manage these emotions on their own. So, how can we identify what leads to emotional dysregulation? When we know the particular situation that may cause distress for the individuals that we support, we are better equipped and able to prepare for these challenges. Sometimes we may be able to adapt the situation so that it's less difficult for them. Consider what is happening in the person's wider physical, emotional, and social environment, taking into account of what we have already discussed about communicative deficits. So there could be some physical elements there that are contributing to emotional dysregulation. Sleep, diet, caffeine intake, health issues, pain. There might be some pre existing emotional issues there, like trauma and anxiety. And there might be some social interactions and relationships that cause them dysregulation. They may be dissatisfied with how a relationship is or not getting their needs met with that relationship. When they become dysregulated in the past, was there anything in the environment that occurred just immediately before this? This is a good way to track what might cause the individual you're supporting emotional dysregulation. And remember, it's important to recognize that each individual experiences their environment in different ways. There are 4 stages of emotional dysregulation. Throughout this webinar, we will discuss the 4 different stages of emotional dysregulation and how they present in an individual experiencing distress and the strategies to support them. These 4 stages are anxiety, defensiveness, risk behavior, and tension reduction. Now we'll discuss the early stages of dysregulation and some ways to support. Anxiety and defensiveness. So, some individuals might experience a gradual buildup of anxiety or upset before they reach dysregulation. These warning signs, also known as precursor behaviours, might be subtle or obvious changes in the behaviour. These precursors are different and specific to the individual, but might include withdrawing from others, so retreating to a private space, avoiding eye contact, not initiating or responding to conversations, becoming tense, restless, and fidgeting, may engage in increased intensity of behaviors such as kind of repetitive questioning, seeking additional support, and appearing really impatient. There may be physiological signs, so sweating, a flushed face, change in breathing. They may appear irritable, quick to anger, and get quite defensive. Again, precursor behaviors are specific to each person, but knowing these early warning signs of the person you're supporting can help them before they reach a crisis. So, during the early stages of dysregulation, there are some ways that we can help support the individual that we're supporting or caring for. We can check our own behavior, so our own verbal communication. Make sure we're using calm and reassuring tones, reduce sentences, use straightforward, clear, and concise language. We can look at our own nonverbal communication, be aware of our body language, assure that you adopt a calm and non confrontational approach. Be aware of your facial expression, get down to their level if they're smaller than you. And it's important that you can label how they are presenting. So show empathy and compassion, and that you're there to support them by saying, I can see you're upset and I'm here for you. Everything will be okay. Consider their physical environment and how you can change it to support them to de escalate. So, you may look at the sound. Is it very noisy and busy? Is there a quieter space that you can move to? The light, is it too dark? Is it too bright? Temperature, is it too hot or too cold? Ensure their environment is safe in the event that the individual may escalate and become distressed. We can consider what happened in the minutes leading up to this. So, if it's appropriate, support them to identify and label what is causing them to become distressed. You can use a collaborative approach to suggest activities that they can engage in to support them to calm down and to regulate. Like, why don't we try some breathing techniques? Some individuals might respond well to a distraction technique, such as going for a walk or completing a different task. Focused activities that the person enjoys and doesn't find too challenging. So maybe a jigsaw puzzle, some colouring, drawing, board games, artwork, crossword. This can be different for everyone. Others may prefer to engage in a specific relaxation strategy, such as deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation. There's more information on this later in our slides. There are some physical activities that can really help during the early stages of dysregulation. Supporting the person to do these physical activities may reduce tension in the body and can be a distraction as well as functional. Some ideas here are heavy work activities such as pushing, pulling, lifting, carrying, using safe items that are already available to you. So this could be carrying a full laundry basket or pushing a toy box to the wall. Squeezing a stress ball, slowly swinging back and forwards on a swing or rocking chair or side to side in a hammock. Sitting in a massage chair, having a foot spa, sucking on hard sweets, eating chewy food like dried fruit or chewing gum, walking in nature, carrying a backpack, walking uphill or on the sand, progressive muscle relaxation, which is often referred to as PMR. And there's going to be instructions attached at the end of this presentation to this. Meditation and breathing techniques can really help during the early stages of dysregulation. Help the person slow down and deepen their breathing. Some examples of this are the lazy 8 breathing, square breathing, deep belly breathing, 6 sides of breathing, and these instructions will be attached at the end of this webinar. With younger people and nonverbal people, more concrete breathing exercises might be more helpful. So this could be blowing bubbles or balloons or blow painting with a straw. Grounding exercises such as body scan or meditation. So you can do this with the person and lead them through, or you may be able to listen to a recording of this. Another activity is naming 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 you can taste. You can also support an individual during the early stages of dysregulation by listening to relaxation music or sounds, or music that that person likes, guided meditation, or even white noise. Create a small den or comfort space with not much sensory input, so like that, it's light, noise, activity we need to look at when we're creating this space, and direct the person there. Check in with the individual throughout the relaxation process and in the minutes and hours thereafter. It is important that you adjust your approach to the individual. What is calming for one person may not be calming for another. Pay attention to what the individual likes and what kinds of sensory or physical activities they tend to choose when they are well regulated. These would be the best ones to try first when you see them becoming dysregulated. So now we'll go on to look at emotional dysregulation. Emotional dysregulation looks different for everyone. Individuals may cry, shout, scream, become physically aggressive, throw, hit, or break things, hurt themselves, maybe by slapping, biting, and pinching themselves, banging their head, or throwing themselves to the ground. Behaviours of concern won't always necessarily look dramatic. However, people may also miss out on opportunities for enjoyment or learning if they're shutting down, and this can involve withdrawing from others or from the environment, disengaging from social or verbal interaction, potentially engaging in repetitive or self stimulatory behaviours. Again, this can cause them to miss out on a lot of enjoyment or any opportunities that may arise. Again, how emotional dysregulation presents can vary across people. Sometimes it might include changes in how they typically interact with caregivers and other people, so how they initiate and respond to others, changes in their body language, facial expression, tone, and volume of voice. For example, you may see that they may not initiate or respond to social interactions, such as not responding to questions, ignoring others, becoming withdrawn. Individuals may become frustrated and angry and exhibit this through shouting, throwing objects, and hitting others. With this, support will be specific to them and their needs, but the following might be really helpful. So, again, look at our own behaviour. Be mindful of your verbal and non-verbal communication. Look at the physical environment and adjust as you need. So, you might need to remove items that could cause injury, reduce noise and other sensory stimulation. Ask any extra people to leave. Bring the person to a quieter place if possible. Reduce verbal communication. Give time for them to process what is happening. When we're dysregulated, it takes us longer to process the information of the environment around us. Sometimes, with this verbal communication, can increase their distress or escalation. So it's really important, if you can, to keep your language really clear and concise. Reduce demands or giving any unnecessary information or instructions. Provide a safe space while reassuring them that you're there to support them when they are ready. Remind them that they are safe and they will be okay. If they are engaging in behaviours that put them or others at risk, consider using a clear, calm, and confident tone to ask them to stop. Use short sentences and communicate only what you need to keep them safe. Support them to do any of the calming activities that we've already identified as being helpful to them. So now we'll look at the aftermath of a period of dysregulation. This is where the tension reduction begins. The aftermath of a period of emotional dysregulation can really vary for everyone. Some individuals may experience relaxed posture, reduced muscle tension, decreased breathing. They may become upset, cry, get tearful. They may be exhausted. Their complexion can return to normal, so that typical colour in their face returns. They may start apologising or exhibiting guilt or embarrassment about how they behaved. Support will be specific to them and their needs. It's important that you listen to them, reassure them they are safe and that you are there to support them. Avoid blaming them or making negative comments about how they felt or how they reacted. Show empathy and compassion why they might be feeling this way. And you can reflect what made you upset. Provide comfort and consider an activity that might help in relaxation and closure. So, following a period of time, consider talking about what happened and brainstorm about what can be done next time. Again, this is different for each profile of the individual that you may support. Were there any calming activities you think that might help them next time? Consider making coping cards with brief instructions that the person can follow the next time. Think about the individual's nutrition, sleep, exercise, and physical health. Are there any improvements that can be made? Like that, maybe reducing caffeine, making sure they go to bed a bit earlier. That will increase their ability to cope. We all experience the world in different ways, and as such, we may all find different experiences and events upsetting or anxiety provoking. It is important to support an individual to identify specific events or situations that may be more likely to lead to emotional distress. Sometimes some individuals may have particular behaviours prior to dysregulation. Be mindful of subtle or obvious warning signs that they are becoming obsessed or distressed. During the early stages of emotional dysregulation, it is important to demonstrate support to the individual, communicating to them that you are there for them. There are different strategies that are helpful for different people. Work with the individual you support to create individualized strategies with them. Now we're going to look at some of the breathing instructions that we mentioned earlier. So here we have a few relaxation and breathing exercises that can really help support a person with their emotional regulation. We have the progressive muscle relaxation, lazy 8 breathing, square breathing, deep belly breathing, often referred to as balloon breathing, and the 6 sides of breathing. You can download the resources with additional guidance on these exercises from the additional resources section in your learning management system. That brings us on to our summary. Today, we went through some helpful information about emotional regulation. We talked about strategies that can be used at different stages of emotional dysregulation. So, like that, recognizing some precursor early warning signs and intervening before the individual you're supporting reaches a crisis point. Compared to when we started, you should now have a greater understanding of the early stages of dysregulation, potential factors that might cause this, and the ways you can support. Again, looking at their environment, our own communication, what dysregulation looks like for the person, and how to support them while maintaining safety. Again, checking the environment. Can we make sure this space is safe for this individual should they escalate? Or can I help them by adjusting the light, temperature, noise? And then how to provide comfort, reassurance, and support to an individual post dysregulation. Thank you for your time and attention during today's webinar. We hope you found it helpful.